Hello, hello, friends. Happy Wednesday. If you are here, you know that you have joined the Pieces Collective. It is definitely a wisdom, wellness, wealth Wednesday. It's a wisdom, wellness, and wealth Wednesday. It's lovely. And I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Shannon Stott. I will be your host for this evening as we dive into financial literacy, a foundation for conscious communities. We're talking about our financial literacy, how we move through the world, making sure that our finances are stable for us and our futures. It's going to be an amazing conversation. For now, for just a moment, if you, wherever you are, whether you're backstage, whether you're off stage, wherever it is, I want you to warm up your fingers and just tell me where you are joining me from, where you are joining us from. It's always nice to know where the audience is. And even if you are watching this later, write in, tell us what you're doing with our Wednesdays and how you're using this information, these wonderful meetings that we have together. Again, you are with the Pieces Collective Wisdom, Wellness, and Wealth event. This is the financial literacy, a foundation for conscious communities. And this is brought to you by the Pieces Collective. And today we are discussing the essential elements of financial knowledge and its significance in empowering individuals, businesses, and especially Black communities. Now, we could just jump into the wonderful people that we have on this panel tonight, but we need to couch this in a little bit of history, a little bit of perspective. And to do that, we're going to bring up Ikrama Muhammad, the executive director of the Pieces Collective, who is committed to using this platform to help serve the needs of the community and contribute to the economic as well as social and human development of women, youth, and young adults. Ikrama, hello.
Greetings, Shannon. How are you?
So well, so glad to be here. As always, how are you doing?
I'm good. Always good to see you, and always happy when the third Wednesday of the month rolls around.
It's true.
And we get to hear from some more of our talented and generous community members to talk to us about topics that are important. The Pieces Collective, as you know, is invested and committed to building thriving communities. And thus, one of the topics that we're going to speak about tonight, which is something that a lot of people, it's in the forefront of a lot of people's minds and also dear to everyone's heart, which is money. So money is a very interesting concept. Some say it's the root of all evil. Some say it's the answer to their prayers. Some say it makes the world go round. And the Beatles said, money can't buy you love. So what we're going to do tonight is talk about money, our relationship to it, our obsession with it, and what does it really mean. So what is money? According to the International Monetary Fund, money can be anything that can serve as a store of value, which means that you can save it and use it later, a unit of account that provides a common base for prices, and a medium of exchange so that you can use and buy and sell from, we can do that from each other. And many things have served as money over time. For instance, cowrie shells, barley, peppercorns have served as money. And of course, gold and silver, which is what the US system was built on. And then there's the term currency. So is that the same as money? I looked that up and I found the reference that says, explained it like this. Money is a broader term that refers to an intangible system of value that makes the exchange of goods and services possible now and in the future. So money is intangible. You can't see it, smell it, touch it. But currency, dollar bills and coins, are simply one tangible form of money. And I'm really looking forward to our panelists maybe explaining that a little bit more to us, but they have a lot of other things to talk about, so I'm going to leave that to them. But the reason it's important to community is that money can also be used as a means of control and influence over people by the people who administer and oversee it. Who gets the money, how much people get, how does it get distributed, how does it affect the economy? All those things are seemingly out of our control, and we hope to get more understanding about that. But what I'd like to talk about is how we value money and how we spend it. So CNBC's Squawk Box, which talks about financial things, said that Black spending power reached a record of $1.6 trillion in 2021. And that's almost double what it was in 2019. Most of the time, we think the narrative around the Black community is that not that one of wealth and prosperity. So that was an interesting fact to me, that we had $1.6 trillion in spending power, and that had doubled. But unlike other groups whose spending power also rose during that period, like the Asians and Latino Hispanics, whose spending power also rose, as well as their net worth in the Black community declined 14%. So our spending power is up, our net worth declined. So what we do with our money and how we spend it, our feelings and relationship toward it are almost as important or equally important or more so than how much money we make. Although we're constantly focused on how much money we make and getting our bag up, etc. Thus, we need financial literacy. Money is a tool, it's a measure. It measures what we put our faith in and what we value, and it can distort our perception of what is truly valuable. We begin to ascribe value to the currency when, as I mentioned earlier, that doesn't really have any intrinsic value. The value is in what we can trade for or invest in with the money. With all the spending power in our community, we still have children who go to bed hungry, cities with contaminated water, food deserts, substandard schools and housing, and we have communities without outlets and facilities for our youth to express their creativity and purpose. W.E.B. Du Bois once said, "The slave went free, stood a brief moment in the sun, and then moved back again into slavery." If we consider shifting our mindset from chasing the dollar solely for individual reward to making more investment in people, communities, land, food, our environment, education, we will likely see our spending power continue to grow and our collective net worth soar. These are the things that produce life and sustain community and long-term wealth. People over profits. I want to make a quote from this book, Collective Courage. This is a history of African-American cooperative economic thought and practice by Jessica Gordon Nemhart. And the quote says that we have a history to show us the benefit and results of uniting as community and pooling our resources. It's also written and familiar to us that our people are not destroyed by their lack of money. We're destroyed for our lack of knowledge. So I'm grateful to the panel tonight for sharing with us their knowledge and their time and experience and expertise, and to help us become more financially literate, where we can again, as Du Bois said, once again walk in the sun. So thank you for coming. I hope that you benefit and that you are inspired to action. Peace.
We also tried to root our experience in honoring and remembering that Black folks have always done this. Like, this is nothing new.
Right.
And the history, particularly in the city of Philadelphia, which, you know, is a city where there was a sizable and a robust free Black community in the 1700s even.
Yeah.
And that there were, you know, mutual aid societies like the Free African Society that were established in the 1780s because Black people had to take care of themselves, right? So they figured out these, and I think, you know, from even like thinking about how Dr. Nemhart frames this, that like Black folks have understood since the period of enslavement that their actual bodies were commodified as economic units, right? And so that their resistance by either saying, I will not be enslaved and will not be going to that new world, and deciding to like jump over the ship, to, you know, once they came here, determining that they would run away. Like these were all practices of cooperative economics, for, you know, pooling their money together to buy other enslaved folks out of slavery. These were all parts of that practice that were happening from the time, I mean, and reach back into like the communities that we came from in West African cultures. All of those practices were already there. So a lot of what, you know, but now we're hearing 21st century capitalism. And a lot of us don't remember that this is how we've held it together and how we've continued to be present and thrive in many facets of our community life is by doing this work together. So we really try to help bring up that history and to even help people acknowledge what are the ways that you already cooperate. That's one of the questions we ask in all of our Co-op 101 workshops. What are you already doing that is cooperation? Because we do it naturally. So we're only really trying to build on something that already exists in your life and to demonstrate a potential other way of expressing it.
Do you see cooperative development, particularly in like the Black community, in some ways juxtaposed to ideas about, you know, the way of addressing the marginalization and oppression of Black people is through Black capitalism? You know, this is a long theoretical idea in terms of, you know, like especially post-slavery kinds of ideas from Thurgood Marshall and other people about, you know, that Black people just need to, you know, get together, get some wealth and participate in traditional capitalist sort of organizations, and then that will happen. And then you have instances like Tulsa and Charlotte, and like other places where you have these
Washington versus
that's it.
W.E.B. Du Bois.
Yeah, exactly. How do you see the cooperative development in terms of, especially particularly to Black communities, as is it juxtaposed to the Black capitalist things? Is it part of it? How do you see that?
See it as distinct from it. I think it's a pathway. A lot of Black folks who are entrepreneurial think about Black capitalism as a path forward for their own freedom, but as also a way of being able to bring others. And I think they think about that because that's what they know. That's what's most accessible, because that's what we're taught, and that's how we're all conditioned to think that we can make it, is through capitalism. And I think though, when folks have the opportunity to hear about a different path, they often will navigate to it. You know, some people are just going to be capitalists, and that's fine, and Black folks can do that if they want. But I think that it's a really different proposition for actualizing liberation, if that's really the goal. That doesn't happen through capitalism. And so I think, you know, if people are looking to make money and to create wealth for themselves, and that's the end goal, then, you know, capitalism might make sense to them. But if people are thinking about ways of transforming and controlling and having ownership of their communities together, that's a different path. And I think that cooperatives offer that opportunity.
This is going to be an amazing panel discussion. So let us jump right into getting our panelists up here and talking to you all. Make sure that if you're watching this, questions are encouraged. So please put those questions in the chat and we will ask them to our wonderful panelists. The first of whom is Dr. Constance Craig Mason. Dr. Constance has received an honorary doctorate of philosophy for her eminent contributions to financial literacy, financial advancement, leadership development, and entrepreneurship empowerment. As the CEO of Concierge Financial Advisory and Investment Advisor Representative at Forthright Capital Partners, Dr. Constance teaches her clients to correctly manage their money and invest in their values so they can live the life they want without worrying about money and leave an undeniably significant legacy. Thank you so very much for being here, Dr. Constance.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course, it'll be great to talk to you. We also have Ike Ilele. Ike Ilele is a financial advisor with Centennial Wealth Management, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services, LLC. A former math teacher in Baltimore City, Ike has since dedicated his career to helping others make sure money is never an obstacle between them and the lives they wish to live, both now and in the future. He is a certified financial planner, professional, and accredited portfolio management advisor. Thank you so very much for being here, Ike.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, it's going to be great, right? You can feel it. We also have Kima Perry. Kima Perry is a powerful creator and master money manifester. She is the founder of Powerhouse Manifesting Academy. Kima helps women to live life on their terms, manifest money with ease, and experience true freedom through private coaching, group masterclasses, and speaking engagements. Kima believes that we have the power within to live the lives that we desire and deserve to live. Thank you, Kima, for manifesting yourself here.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, before we jump into all of it, because there's a lot to jump into, I want to ask you who are at home, so answer this in the chat, and for all of you, just a warm-up question, a little warm-up question, which is, what was the first thing you can remember purchasing of significance, and how did it make you feel?
I can go.
Yeah.
The first thing that I purchased of significance was my home. So I purchased a home at about 27 years old. And it was a big deal for me because I grew up in poverty and I did not see my relatives, such as parents, grandparents, experience home ownership. So I was green and I was learning as I went, but I truly appreciated the opportunity to link up with experienced loan officers and real estate agents. They made that process so super easy. And then I could say that I was a homeowner and I could break what was previously, us not having any assets. Now we can say that we do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. No, that's a really great question. And I wish I could have quite as meaningful of an answer, but I think just being practical, probably my first significant purchase that I can remember would have been my first car. It was at the time, it was a new 2010 Toyota Corolla, which I was very excited about, having just recently gotten out of college and finally having my own ride. I still drive it to this day, which is maybe a sign of frugality, but I figure as long as the wheels keep turning, then I'm gonna keep driving it.
Awesome.
So I don't know if I want to call this a purchase, but I'm going to talk about one of the favorite things that I manifested. So for years, my husband and I kept talking about going to Europe. We wanted to go to Europe. And for some reason, it just never happened. And I always say it's because we weren't specific about where we wanted to go. So I got the vision board going. We put London, Venice, it was somewhere else. I can't remember. But anyway, we were like, we're going. We had been saving some money. And then that Christmas, my uncle gave each of his nieces and nephews a check for $1,000. Now, that doesn't usually happen in my family. Since then, I have had those experiences, which was the exact amount that we needed for our tickets from Bermuda. It's a direct flight. From what we had saved with $1,000 was the exact amount of money that we needed to get to London. And in 2017, we were able to go to London, Venice, Paris, Rome, and Naples. That's just my favorite story ever.
So these are great. These are great. I want to talk. I want to talk about these purchases, these manifestations of significance, because we they're often benchmarks, right? And Dr. Constance, this is so great. It's so great. It is helpful to come from and understand a story of poverty into moving out of poverty. And for EK and Kima, I would assume that you've worked with mindsets like these before. And my question really is, how do you coach someone into a money mindset that is coming from poverty, who really, when they think of having money, the first thing they want to do is spend it. Spend it on something, the car, the house, the clothes, the anything. But how do they shift their mindsets?
Well,
Go ahead, Kima.
Okay. One of the things that I really help people to do is get clear on what is it that you want. Because we're so afraid to say, I want this, or I get to have it. We put ourselves in positions where we think it's unattainable for us. So that first step of just getting that clarity, I think it just opens your mindset up to that's possible for me.
Yeah. And kind of piggybacking off of that, I think it is especially important to reframe the conversations about saving versus spending. When I'm having a lot of my conversations with clients, I make it very clear, money doesn't exist to be saved, to be put into some account to make the numbers go up. That's not really the point. The only reason that we save and that we invest is so that we can have that available at some point in the future. So I've reframed this conversation about saving to conversation about paying your future self so that you have that available for these experiences and these things that are going to bring you joy in the future.
Can I chime in really quick?
Please, more.
So I have been with my husband since I was 19 years old, and I'm 44 now, right? So I have a funny story. He used to like to go window shopping, and I hated it. Okay. I hated window shopping because I felt like it was torture. It's like, why would I go and look at things that I can't afford to have, at least not in the present moment? Why would I go look at houses? Why would I go? And he would be like, let's dream and let's go and see and what would he say? Let's get the price for the item so that when we're ready, we know what we're doing. And it took me a while to come to the agreement that, you know what, it's okay to dream, because then you can turn those dreams into goals, and then you can give yourself tasks so you can check things off and eventually accomplish those things. So that was one of the mindset things that I had to break off, because I hated going to look at things that I did not have the resources for at the time. But it took someone, my husband's older than I am, it took someone who's like, listen, you got to shift that, because if you're going to be with me, okay, you're going to have to elevate your thinking so we can be on the same page. So that is one of the main things that has to shift when we're thinking about getting ourselves into financial liberation.
This is, all of you have said in one way or another, reframing. And I want to see if I can manifest or take us back to Sister Akrama's wonder about money, because we have such an idea of what money is, and then we have an idea of other words that we use for this term. So can you talk to us about the actual how do we reframe what we know, in quotes, about money?
Yeah, I think probably just to piggyback off of Dr. Constance again, this conversation that she had with her husband really does sort of drive the whole change in mentality shift, right? You have to get away from this idea of money as this thing to chase, or because that leads you into the rat race, if you will. This constant scarcity of just trying to chase the numbers, but instead seeing it as a means to an end to get you from where you are now to where you want to be in the future. And then, because when it comes down to it, even if people don't have the financial wherewithal necessarily to make some big picture decisions just yet, what it all comes down to at the start is just having those goals in mind first. And if you have those, and like she had just said, you can start then breaking those down into little baby steps to move forward, and then it's a lot less intimidating that way.
You said a thing that is really interesting to me, because in the video there was this idea of means to an end. You said this, like, means to an end, and there's a thought that, okay, I'm going to save this money, I'm just going to keep on saving it. And in the video she was saying, for what? If capitalism and having as much money when you leave this place is the goal, then great. But if there's another goal, then we need to start thinking about community. And I'm wondering, can you talk to us about changing that mindset? Actually, can you talk to us about what else is there, right? Because we have this thought, like, I just need the money. I need a bucket of money. But what else should we be thinking about instead of this bucket? Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I would share. I talk to my clients often about more, right? So I let them tell me, what does more look like in their life? And more is really an acronym to make it easy for me to remember. But I ask them about the memories that they want to have in their life with their loved ones, with their friends, with their family, in the community, the options that they want to experience. What are the opportunities that they want to come across and experience in life? What about good relationships? Because some of us are not still friends with our childhood friends, some are, but we want to build additional relationships that are positive and impactful. So what about relationships? What about having more resources to be able to give to your community or your religious church or whatever you believe in? And then I heard someone say experiences, right? And exposure. And I have a quick story about exposure. I grew up in poverty in the inner city of Baltimore, and my great aunt lived in Chicago, and she lived in a condo, which I knew nothing about. And she had a Cadillac. And so she wanted to send for me and my sister, who were about 9 or 10 years old at the time. And she sent round trip tickets for us to come to Chicago as unaccompanied minors, because my mother just did not want to get on that plane. She was terrified. But she sent the tickets for us to go. And I always share that story about my aunt, because she gave me some exposure to coming out of my current circumstances, which, to be honest, were not great. But she gave us a break from that, right? We got to travel and do a first time trip on a plane. You know, she took us to museums while we were there. She doted on us, fed us good food, told us stories at night. And the point I'm making is that is what we need, right? We need exposure to different communities, different people, different opportunities. And, you know, she didn't think anything of it, but I'm 44, and I always share that story of how, even though my mom was afraid, she still let us go. And we went and we experienced something amazing. And now I get to do that for young people in my midst that I'm raising, that I'm around at church, that I'm around in the community. I get to be that person that opens up their eyes. So I always talk about more, and I let them define it for me.
I like to piggyback on that a bit, in that that's how our money beliefs are actually created, based on the experiences that we have as children. So it's based on what we observe, what we hear, and what we experience. And when we think of that, it helps us to understand a lot of the things that we think are our beliefs really aren't. They were passed down to us. And just having that awareness, I think, helps us to realize, if it's not mine, that means I can do things differently.
I really don't have anything else to add. No,
Oh, that's
pretty
great.
much it.
There's a couple of different questions here, but I'm going to start with you were talking, Dr. Constance, about your aunt bringing you, taking you out, right? Giving you a new perspective. And for all of you, what is your perspective on collective economic efforts, right? That's where that seems to lead. I want to take your child or give you an experience, take your child so that they have an experience. I want to put in money into a pot for our community, our neighborhood. Can you all talk a little bit about, collective economics and how that benefits us, what it's like, what does it even mean?
Well, one of my goals, now that you say that, one of my goals is to fly first class more often. And the reason that I want to do that is because we always walk from the front to the back of the plane, right? And so I can just see that little Black girl walking on that plane, seeing me sitting there and saying, I get to sit there too, because most times when we walk on a plane, we do not see people who look like us in first class. And I think that's going to shift us to to understanding that we can be in the room. That room, we get to be in it. The one that many of our ancestors weren't able to be in.
That's good. Yeah, I'll even speak to a more recent experience that I had during the pandemic, around about early 2020. The world had changed as we knew it in every way, how we socialized, how we went to see the doctor, if we could go to work or not, how we would run our businesses. Everything was shifted, even how we went to church. And there was a lot of murmuring, a lot of complaining, a lot of whating. And we said we did not want to be a part of the peanut gallery. My husband and I, we were like, listen, we feel it like everyone else, but what can we do about it? What light can we bring? What positivity can we bring? What resources can we add? And so I looked to my left, looked to my right on social media, of course. I used Clubhouse at the time, it was popping. And Facebook, Instagram, all of those platforms. And I started looking for people of color to come alongside with us and say, how can you share your story about the pandemic, how you're navigating it? We did a book project together collaboratively with other Black married couples at the time. And we asked them, share with us how you navigate love, money, and entrepreneurship. And because this was a space where people were pivoting, they were doing things more virtually now, we were able to get in front of people across the world on a multi-day conference that we hosted. My husband and I, we had never done anything like that before. We put on a multi-day conference. We launched the book project and spotlighted all the authors. We spotlighted a bunch of business owners in our virtual exhibitor space. And when I tell you, just because we asked, can you come help us? What is it that that you can share? Everybody was saying yes. One, we were home and we wanted something to do. But two, right, we were able to talk with people across the world and share our resources, share our talents, give connections. And my husband and I, by the end of it, because it was a 8-day, multi-day conference, by the end of it, we were able to sit back and literally watch speakers and attendees connecting. And then the next thing you know, they're doing book projects together. They're inviting each other to speak at engagements. Like, we created the platform and then we just let the positivity take hold. And now we created a village where people support one another. Even 3 years later, they're sharing out, what are you doing? What's your event? What are you launching? And it is such a great experience to know it started with something negative. And we said, we don't want to be a part of that. We want to be a part of something that shifts the energy and creates the change that we want to see. And we just continue to do that. So we're working on our 3rd year with that kind of mindset. And it has been amazing, to say the least.
Yeah, I wanna tie this conversation back into this idea of mindsets, because we've talked about this now a few times, right? And so when I'm thinking about cooperation, cooperative economics, it really is about shifting that mindset from the scarcity mindset of there's only so much resources, there's only so much wealth out there, I've got to protect my slice of the pie, to this pro-social behavior of just recognizing that if you collaborate with your community, if you pool your resources and your knowledge and your wisdom together, you can grow the pie and everybody gets a bigger slice, right? This whole idea that there's only so much to get around is a myth. It truly, and it really and truly is. And so getting out of that mindset is something that we have to become comfortable with as a community.
In getting out of that mindset takes education. Like, we have to educate ourselves. And sometimes, and you all have talked a little bit about this, the only education that we've had has been passed down from others. And so how do you suggest we break out of that given mindset? And then the second half of that is, what education, where do we go to find this financial education?
Yeah, so we are fortunate to live in a world where I guess fortunate or unfortunate, depending on your perspective, where there's just so much information readily available at the touch of a button. You click open your phone, you type a question into Google, before long, people are going to be typing questions into whatever AI device and get an answer in 5 seconds. And truthfully, that is wonderful in some ways and absolutely terrible in other ways, because there's a lot of bad information out there. So I think for me personally, my biggest priority is starting with a behavior change of just being more comfortable talking with the members in your community about your finances. Talking with your neighbors or your coworkers or your family. And I know, at least for me, and I expect this is probably the case with a lot of people watching, the other panelists, conversations about money weren't a thing in my household. My parents came to the United States in the 70s from extreme poverty in Nigeria, and they've managed to make a living for themselves. I'm incredibly grateful for them for that. But even now, working as a financial planner, having these conversations with them is challenging. It's not something that, as a culture, we really just practice. And so I think part of it is going to have to be this sort of generational shift of, if you're not open with each other about what these sort of conversations can look like, it's going to be so much more difficult to identify where your actual blind spots are, because you don't know what you don't know until somebody else points it out. So I think probably a good place to start is just talk with your neighbors and be comfortable doing so.
Can I ask you, when you say talk with your neighbors, be comfortable doing so, let's pretend that lots of people are very comfortable with their neighbors, one. Two, once you are comfortable, you're in the neighborhood, you're comfortable, what are some questions that you can ask without feeling stupid, without feeling like you're giving away too much? How do you start that conversation?
Well, for me, because I'm having this conversation a lot with my neighbors now. I just moved to a new neighborhood in Baltimore. I didn't really know anybody around as I was getting there. And I had just bought my first house maybe about 2.5 years ago at this point. So this was a huge conversation for me, just as somebody who had never really gotten into home ownership before. And it started with, I started with very little things of just, hey, I need somebody to come fix X, Y, Z around the house. Who do you recommend? And also, how much should I expect to pay for that? And also, how did you wind up paying for that when you did did you take out some sort of loan? Did you have your savings? But, starting with kind of more concrete problems to solve can make it a little bit easier to kind of navigate then into the question of finances sort of indirectly. Because it's not easy for people. I don't want to just walk up and you can't just open a conversation with, hi, I'm EK, how much do you work? Right? That's not really a good icebreaker. But people are okay about talking about other things, and then they can kind of lean into finance questions over time from there.
And I love how you said that, EK, about, talking to people around you, because oftentimes we look for safe spaces where we can have conversations. And, oftentimes, since you brought up home ownership, some of our neighborhoods have homeowners associations. Some of them have community development spaces where, you already have something in common, right? Maybe it's the community you live in, maybe it's the issue at hand. And I'm a naturally inquisitive person anyway, so I just start asking questions. And what I find is people will usually talk about something that they're a little bit upset about, right? And instead of adding to that, well, I know that's right, it's like, well, what would you do about it if you could fix it, or if you could change it? Now, they might tell you something like that, or they might say, well, if I had X amount of dollars, I would. So then that opens up the door of, well, who can give us the money, right? Where can we find the money? So instead of us just complaining and just gathering together to have this, conversation about what we don't like about our neighborhood or the government or whatever, we position ourselves through those conversations to be able to find the resources. And I have experienced that most people are helpful, right? They want to be able to say, I've got a number for you. I've got a website. I know someone. Like they might not want to do it, but they can say, hey, here's a piece of the puzzle that you might need, and let me know how it works out. Or if you need me, I'll be there. But to be able to get into some of these comfortable spaces that we often go to, whether it's our religious places, our community development, homeowners associations, even our schools, when we have back to school night sometimes, these are spaces that we're going to anyway. And instead of just saying, well, I don't like this and I don't like that, then ask the person, well, what would you do if you could change it? How would you do it? And it usually comes down to money or time. And if people are willing to volunteer, then you can knock that out.
Social media is a great place as well. So I use my social media platform to talk about money, say the things that my beliefs about money, get people to share different posts. And I think you mentioned this, Dr. Constance, it's almost like a safe place. And it was something that I was so afraid of. I was so afraid to talk about money because I felt, oh, I'm not doing enough. I don't know enough. I don't have this. I don't have that. But what I realize is that what I bring to the table is exactly what people need right now. So I think part of that is following your calling as well, because we all have something. We all have a mission, a purpose here, and really just stepping up to that and letting that be part of your tribe, your collective group.
I'm hearing, and I know I've experienced, there's definitely there's a fear around money, right? But what you all are saying is curiosity. I mean, that's the word that's bubbling up for me, instead of being met with fear, right? Oh, this thing is happening, I can't afford, or I can't afford something, or something is broken in my home, or I really don't like the way this is happening in my community. Instead of, right, Dr. Constance saying, instead of just, wow, I really don't like that, really stepping in with this curiosity. And EK, you're talking also, when we're talking to our neighbors, right? The curiosity gets the community together. Now we're chatting, right? I want to get into then, as we're talking about curiosity, when you are starting from scratch, right? You are in the space of, okay, I have very little, I don't know what to do to start establishing financial stability. What do you do then? The fear can really be a weight on you. So where do you find that curiosity, and what are some tips that you have to start?
Well, first of all, I think it's understanding that the fear is real. The feeling of the fear is real, but we don't have to be afraid of the fear. So it's understanding that even though I'm feeling this fear, I am safe because a lot of times that fear is wrapped around the feeling of not being safe. And when you think of our ancestors, having a lot of money was not safe for them. It was either taken from them, stolen from them, or they would be accused of different things. They could even be killed because they had money. So it's understanding that I am safe. So one of the things that I like to coach my clients around is saying, even though I feel this fear, it is safe for me to now start talking about money. It is safe for me to be around money. It is safe for me to be in rooms where people have money. Because when we get afraid, we run, we hide, or we fight. And so it's understanding what's coming up for me, and why is this coming up for me, and what is it that I can start doing differently.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
And oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Okay. So I like to go to a word that I'm not sure if how prevalent it is out in the communities, but financial well-being, right? And a lot of times we hear about our mental health, we hear about our
Mm,
physical health, but there is a financial well-being. And it breaks down, actually, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau created a definition for that. But it lends itself to a state of being, right? Just like anything else, your mental being, your physical being, a state of being where you're comfortable being able to handle your current obligations, your future obligations, and enjoy your life along the way. That is what financial well being is about. And when you touched on Kima, fear, right? Fear often comes from our unknowns, right? The things
yes.
that we feel out of control of. When I'm thinking about financial well being and breaking down the definition, it comes to literacy. So, how much do we know about money, right? So, we can control that. Then it comes down to our capacity. Do we even have any sources of income? And what are our behaviors? We're in control of that, right? And then the last piece is your situation. So even if you understand money and you make good money, situations will pop up like the pandemic that are outside of your control that shifts your confidence a little bit.
Mm,
But as long as you have those other legs of the stool, the financial well-being stool, right? You have capacity. You're shifting your behaviors. You understand at least the basics about money. There is really no need to fear, because that means that you have put emergency savings in place. That means that you have put insurances in place, because those are the types of things that help you when what ifs happen, right? And those are the things that we fear, because we feel like those are the things that come upon us out of nowhere, right? So if you're focusing on building up your financial well-being, which is your literacy around money, your capacity, you have some resources, your behaviors, and yes, preventing the what ifs that happen, then that fear starts to dissipate and you begin to build confidence.
And I think it's really important to just also acknowledge, like Kima had said, the fear is a natural stress response to these unknown situations, and it's okay to feel that and to ask for help. It doesn't
mm.
need to be anything super formal. You don't need to start calling up the big banks and asking to speak to a financial advisor necessarily. Maybe that is your solution. I don't know. But it could also just be, who else has been in this situation before me that
Mhm.
might be able to offer me some guidance here? If you, I would be far. I feel like I would be remiss not to just acknowledge, like, getting help is a normal thing that people do, especially if you're anything like me. And as a young adult, you just kind of screwed up left and right, and asking for help is not something to be ashamed of, right?
Right. Yeah. I want to just take a moment to just welcome the people who are just joining us and are wondering what is going money, a money talk. Who can I talk to? Well, you can type in the chat at any given moment, ask our wonderful panelists your questions, your fears, your concerns, your wonders about around money, savings, financial well-being, and you can have them answered here. People are thanking you for this conversation. Ikrama is asking, I feel like this is right on the path. How do we change the mindset of escaping poverty to solving it? How do we change the mindset of escaping poverty to solving it?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question, isn't it? Right? And I think if I had a heads up solution to just how do we fix poverty, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I'd be. I'd probably be on my book tour by now, is what I would say.
Well, yeah, please.
But that said, though, I think just starting with the idea, and I think I've mentioned this before, of the the scarcity mindset is a myth, right? The idea that there are some people who have to be the haves and some people who have to be the have-nots. Especially if you really look back and you go back to that definition of money and recognize, so much of this is socially constructed, like so many other things. And if that is the case, it becomes a social effort to sort of deconstruct some of these myths around it, right? I think just having these open conversations about, well, hold on, why do we think the world has to be that way, is the first sort of step in sort of shifting towards that solution.
Absolutely. Oh, Dr. Constance, we want to hear what you have to say.
I don't know how I got muted, Lord. So I will touch on what I was sharing before about what we decided to do during the pandemic. A lot of what we were doing is we were exchanging value one to another. And when we're thinking about coming out of a poverty mentality and coming out of an actual poverty status, right? Not having enough income or resources, or being in neighborhoods that don't have a bunch of resources for kids, for elderly, that kind of thing. Bartering is an exchange of value, just like currency is, right? So when you think about it, it's like, I don't have to have all the money to be able to bring about change. I just have to get some people together who are well versed in this thing or have the resources, who are willing to help us in this way, right? So bartering is another way of being able to model before others, hey, here's how I show up in a space where resources are needed. Oh, wait, well, here's how I show up in a space where resources are needed. And part of that goes back to the literacy, right? So whatever you have learned, you share with someone you care about, that's what I did before I even got into finance as a profession. I was Googling all kind of basic financial things, like EK said, getting his first car. I Googled how to get a car, how to get a credit card, how to get a bank account. I was Googling all these things in my late teens because it was not being modeled before me in my immediate circle. So I couldn't say, hey, Ma, how do I do this? Because she hadn't done it yet. And no diss to my mom, because I love her dearly. But what I'm saying is you have to pursue knowledge, right? So if I'm Googling and now I have that knowledge, it means nothing if I don't implement what it is that I'm learning. So once I am implementing it, it's building my confidence. I'm getting secure. And now I am modeling before the people around me, cousins, family, neighbors, at the school, at the church. I'm modeling it. So now it's not a sense of, oh, the wealthy have and I don't, and they're unreachable. No, it's Constance who's in the next pew who I watched fix her credit and get a home. Oh, it's Constance who I saw with her children on the bus stop, and now she has a Ford Windstar. Listen, I remember you said what kind of car you had. I had a Ford Windstar, okay, a big old red van, and I was so proud of it. But that's the point I'm making, right? Once you gain that knowledge, being able to share it with others, being able to model it before, and then showing up in spaces to lend of yourself. Doesn't have to be an actual financial exchange. It can be an energy exchange. It can be a knowledge exchange. It could be volunteering of your time to get something done, that elbow grease that you have to do. Like that is all about getting us out of that poverty mentality and the physical poverty that we may be experiencing.
So the change of mindset, part of that is understanding that people have to want it. If they don't want it, if they don't desire it, we can talk about it to, as they used to say, to the cows come home. But one thing that I like that I'm seeing in schools now, which I think is going to help in this area, is that they're teaching about a growth mindset. So just having that growth mindset and having that in the schools, I think is going to change for the next generation. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's helpful.
actually, I want to touch on that as a former teacher, because when I was teaching in Baltimore City, that was really one of the big kind of buzzwords that was floating around in my training, was instill this growth mindset, this idea that where you are now doesn't have to be where you will be in the future, and helping these kids who, I mean, I'm sure you can imagine a lot of them were coming from some pretty tough circumstances, but just reminding them that they don't have to be that way,
Yes.
for in the future. They can be the agents of change in their own life as long as they have the grit and the resilience and the curiosity to do so. So that's a huge piece.
We have a shout out to the educators in the chat. So just so you know, as we're talking about exactly this, we're talking about educating our youth and ourselves. I'm a youth, and I'm wondering, what are some of the most common financial mistakes you've seen people make, and how are you coaching them to avoid those mistakes?
Oof, that's a big
Well,
one. Go ahead, Tima.
I have a whole
Where do I
different take
start?
on mistakes. It's
Yeah.
feedback. It's feedback because we're so hard on ourselves. Like one thing my mom always said, saving. If you don't save, what's the sense of working? And I interpreted saving as not living and not having fun and not doing the things that I want to do. So to me, I felt like I was the biggest mistake because I wasn't saving. And so, but looking back, no, I wouldn't anything I spent the money on, I I have no regrets with that. It's just that I can do both. Maybe that's it. So it's
Yeah.
not necessarily that it's mistakes, it's feedback on how can you improve? How can you do better? What is it that you would like to do differently? What is it that I go back to this all the time? What is it that you are really wanting? Because we get so caught up in the mistake that we just continue in that cycle of doing the same thing. We stay trapped in the mistake. Oh, I'm not doing it right. I'm doing this wrong. I'm not doing it right. But you are. It's maybe there isn't an end. Maybe it's a journey, and this is all part of the journey. And so when you look at it, there is no corporate ladder. It's more a journey because you never really make it to the top, right? So there are different parts of the journey. You have the mountains, you have the valleys, you have people who are with you. You have times when you have to go alone, sorry. So I think it's feedback. Feedback.
I can say too, specifically for some of the adults that I encounter in this space, I always talk about other people's money, right? We have people who want to help us to achieve our financial goals. And even if you have like an employer that's offering a match, right? So if you're putting into your 401k, 403b, something of that nature, and your employer has the capacity to give you a match, that is free money, right? So I can't tell you how many people say, I don't know if they match, or I don't even know what custodian they're using. And I'm just like, ask the questions, right? Go to the human resources department, find out what options are available for your long-term investing, primarily because that's part of the money that you don't have to then find to put into the account, right? They're giving it to you because of the longevity. You're working at this place, you may as well get something for it, right? The other thing is the basic wealth formula. It relates to how much money you are putting in consistently, whether it's a retirement account, a brokerage account, a savings account, whatever, right? You have to have some kind of principle going somewhere. Then the other component is interest that you might be earning on that money that you're putting in. So we know we have to put something in. We know that we want to have earnings on it. And then the other piece to that basic wealth formula is time. I cannot tell you how many people who say because they only earn a small amount of salary that I can't afford to save. That means that for 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 years, you have missed out on the principal, the interest, and the time that it takes to build something, right? So even if it's just a few dollars that you're able to put away, be consistent at it, because it will accumulate. It is just numbers. It's just numbers, right?
Mhm.
More consistent you are with what you are doing, the better off you will be. And it builds that confidence and a new habit. So now you're looking at that account that was once $0, and now you see just a few hundred. You'll be like, wow, well, if I could do that, I could bump it up an extra 5, an extra 10, 20, whatever, right? Because now you know I have a habit of saving, right? I have a new habit of investing. So the mistakes that I hear is, I can't do it, I don't have the money, right? Or not utilizing the benefits of the others that they put in place for you and not taking advantage of it.
Yeah. I think if I were to try, because working in this industry, you see all sorts of crazy things when clients come to you for the first time. And I think if I were to try and distill sort of what is the core central mistake that seems to underpin all of them, it's probably just overcomplicating things. You know, Dr. Constance just gave a really great example, right? There's free money available to you in your 401k. Why are you not taking advantage of it? That's a no-brainer, and it comes right out of your paycheck. And you don't have to think about, well, how much do I need to put in, or what do I need to invest in? You click the button when you start the job, and then maybe you click the other button that says bump it up 1% a year, and then you don't look at it again for 30 years, and suddenly you're a millionaire, right? But I've had clients come to me with, oh, you know, this other advisor has this really crazy trading strategy, or this fancy pants insurance product that I don't really understand, and it's 900 pages of paperwork that I have to go through and explain. Or, you know, I'm probably going to disappoint a couple people on the internet, but it was for a long time it was cryptocurrencies, or before that it was marijuana stocks, right? There's people think they've like solved this system that is, you know, ultimately not really there to be solved. And when it comes down to it, just show up and do the basic stuff and be consistent about it, and you'll probably turn out okay. And if you don't have the wherewithal, you don't have the ability to sort of remove your emotions from that and get those kind of basic reps in, then find someone who can coach you to do that, or find somebody who can help hold your hand and walk you down that path.
On the same sort of note, in what are the mistakes, I wonder, and I like this reframe, Kima, this not necessarily, they're not mistakes, you know, we're reframing into, I think, this question: what are some limiting beliefs or patterns that you have seen, that you all have seen, that you've had to just break for people?
Yeah, I think the key word that I'd probably say, just coming primarily from the investing side of things, it's definitely fear. It is a fear of a system that is objectively too complicated. It is obtuse, and it is one that we don't speak about much, and that a lot of members of our community are just naturally skeptical of, right? But it is a system that has built wealth for generations beforehand. And if you are not able to participate in that, then you really don't stand a chance at lifting yourself out of your present circumstances, right? So I think about, I'm trying not to get too technical here, but I'm thinking about where we find the markets over this past maybe 12 to 18 months or so. My phone is ringing off the hook with clients begging me to sell everything that they have invested and just go to cash and get out of the market. And just having that constant conversation of, hey, remember what the goal here is. You know, we don't really need to worry so much about what's happening right now, because we have a path, we have a plan in place for what the next 40 years are going to look like. So what do I care about this year, and why should you, right? So being able to remove that fear and then it goes to other things as well. It's not just investments, right? But being able to remove that fear of the system and just be able to participate in the already present structures that can allow you to build your wealth for yourself, for your family, for the people close to you. That's probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
And I'll share too when you go
So
ahead.
I feel like that connects with what Kima was saying about journey. Like what is the journey that we're on? But yes, please, Dr. Constance.
I was just going to touch on that too. This is a journey that we're experiencing, very unique to our own beliefs. Like I think it was Kima who said earlier, we borrowed beliefs of our parents and our grandparents and those who raised us. But then once we started, developing our own adult life, now we get to shift some things around, do things a bit differently. And I remember being told, especially from the spiritual perspective, that when you put money in the hands of the right people, it will go on and do great things. I've heard, that the wealthy, are bad people because all they think about is money or taking money from the little guy. And, I saw in the video, they were talking about capitalism, and it's like, capitalism is not necessarily a bad thing. It's how you go about doing it and making sure that you're not harming someone for your gain. There are definitely ways to do that. When you were talking about investing, EK, there is such a thing called, impact investing, right? There's ESG, SRI. I'm sure you've seen some of this stuff spinning around on the internet. But basically, the common goal for that is that, yes, I want a rate of return when I put my money someplace, but I also want my money to represent the values that I have in my life. The things that are important to me, yes, I can add money to that thing or that cause. And if I'm able to do that, yes, now I'm tearing down these strongholds of we don't deserve more, because we do. We are not entitled to have a certain kind of lifestyle because of maybe the past or the way someone took something from us. But we get to shift that primarily with our behavior and our mindset. But when you get exposed to things to say, okay, if we're coming together with pooling together our resources, maybe it's in the aspect of pooling together your funds in a mutual fund, or pooling together in an investment club, or pooling together in your own community or family, right? And say, this pot is for X. This is the goal that we have to make sure that this thing is changed in the next 5 to 10 years. But you get to be able to change that based on those limiting beliefs that only the wealthy or evil people have money. If good people have money, then what can we do to offset what's happening in the world? So I like to say that relearn some of those negative limiting beliefs. Think about it from the aspect of, if I had a few zeros in my bank account, what could I then do to impact the world around me?
And I think one of the most common limiting beliefs that show up with the women that I work with is that they, one, feel trapped in a system that they feel like they cannot get out of. And they focus so much on what they cannot have. They focus on what they cannot afford, that they are just not even open to the possibilities. So that's a lot of the work, the mindset work that we do together, is like, it doesn't matter. You still get to have what you want. You still get to have what you want, even though you're in it. And kind of like what you were saying earlier, Dr. Constance, like being in the pandemic, but still choosing to see the positive. It's the same. Even though right now I can afford my dream home or my dream car, it doesn't mean that I don't give myself permission to focus on it, and just doing some energetic work around that to help them to shift their mindset.
Kima, will you and everyone, will you share maybe a success story that, a success story that you've had where you've coached somebody to shift their mindset and then they've been able to achieve whatever dream that they had?
Ooh, I have a client right now who a few years ago was talking about just really experiencing more freedom and more ease. And someone came to her to talk about a possibility of a job. She now has a higher salary. She has a beautiful office with a view. She has more time for herself. She was able to take the entire summer off. And I said to her, I don't think you realize these are the things that we actually talked about. These were the things that you were saying, like, these are the things that I want. These are my desires. And now she's living it. It's her reality. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. I work a lot in the retirement space, and one of my newer clients who I've just recently started working with, maybe 6, 7 months ago, give or take, she had been seeing another advisor previously, but she hadn't met with this guy probably 3, 4 years or something. And she came to our team, and we had a meeting that was actually on the calendar, but she was so afraid to show up. She actually called me to cancel the day of, because she was panicking. She's like, I don't have any of the documents you asked for. I don't know if I'm on track for this retirement goal that I wanna be able to stop working in 5 years, but I feel like I haven't saved enough. And I said, well, hold on. Let's calm down for a moment. And if you don't have your paperwork, that's fine. That's not the important piece. That's just data to put into some software. But let's just meet. Let's have a conversation and take a step back and envision, why are we stepping away from work, right? We don't want to retire away from work. Ideally, we want to retire towards something else. So let's just have a conversation about what that next phase of your life looks like. And then from there, we can start to kind of build out, okay, we'll build out the numbers piece as we get the image of what that looks like first. And so over the next several, I want to say 3-4 meetings or so, the early ones of those, or early meetings, we didn't talk numbers at all. I didn't talk about investing strategy. I didn't talk about a Roth IRA versus a 401k versus any of that. And we just had the conversation of, well, what do you want to do? And beginning from that, what's the name of the book? Start with Why, I think is the name of the book. But beginning from that mentality made it so much easier for her to realize, well, actually, it's really a pretty simple life that I'm trying to get towards. It doesn't have to cost a fortune for me to get that. And then so when we finally did go in and start doing the calculations and the projections and the numbers, not only was she on track, but she actually probably could retire now. If she really wanted to step away that badly, I was pretty confident that she could do so without any issue. But she likes her job, so she's sticking around a little bit longer. She likes the work she's doing. And, now she has that optionality for if those circumstances ever change, then she can know with confidence, because she envisioned what it was she was moving towards. She has the optionality to step away if it comes to it.
Yeah, and I would just touch on really quick. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, especially first generation entrepreneurs. And it is such a great experience, not just for them, but for me also, to be able to shift their perspective from when they have made the big leap and they have left their employers and they're like, listen, I'm going full out this time. And then they feel this immediate fear that, okay, well, I don't get that paycheck every week or every 2 weeks anymore. And I don't have my benefit package anymore. And to be able to let them know, like, EK, when you're setting things up, the products, if you will, but it's really about what it is that they want, right? There's always a product that matches the goal, but to be able to let them know that it's not a disadvantage that you have left this particular space. You just have to create for yourself. You can build your own retirement account under your business name and contribute to it similarly that you would when you were working with that employer. And just, I had a speaker that I was working with, and prior to her leaving her job, she was worried about her credit and it wasn't the optimal score, because she knew that if she needed to finance her business, that she would be a personal guarantor first before she could build any business credit. And so we worked together, got her score up literally within like 60 days from her doing what I told her to do. She was like screenshotting her scores and sending it to me like, listen, look. And then it's like, okay, great. And when we think about our entrepreneurs who start getting this, what they call new money, Y'all know what new money is, right? So now you have these clients consistently, you have these contracts, these opportunities, and now it's like, now what do I do with this money? It's like, I know how to pay bills, but beyond that, what do I do with this new money? Being able to engage with a financial planner for the first time and say, I'm entitled to then give my money a job instead of me just always working for a dollar, chasing a dollar. But now that this money has come in, I can partner with someone who knows more than I do, who can listen to the things that I'm sharing that I want out of life for myself, for my legacy, for my kids, for the community. And they can actually put the thing in place and I can go on and serve. So that one speaker, you know, she has this 6-figure new money. And she was so excited about being able to get herself a planner and set up things for her business similarly to what she had experienced with her employer. But now she is the boss, being able to do those things and be able to hire people and bring them into being able to offer them benefits. So I absolutely love the aha moments where they say, you can build this, you can build it too.
Can you all talk a little bit about your job, as in people, as you're talking, all of you, about I was coaching her, I'm giving this advice. I think that people think that having a financial advisor is a big deal and it's not for me, or it's too expensive, or I'm going to be it's going to be very vulnerable. I don't want anyone looking into my finances, right? Can you just help us understand what it is that you actually do for your clients?
Go ahead,
All right, I'll start. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the big things that we want to make sure that we get away from is that I think anyone and everyone can benefit from having a conversation with a financial professional. It doesn't necessarily mean you got to sign on the dotted line and turn over your life savings, but a good financial planner, a good financial advisor, financial coach, financial consultant, whatever title they use, it starts with a conversation about your goals. What are you trying to do? And just clarifying, what does that life look like for you now versus in the future? And hopefully, ideally, drawing a line to connect those two. And none of that has to be a money conversation. Money is just a tool that we use to walk that path. But it starts from envisioning your life in the future and trying to figure out what steps you need to take to get there. A lot of advisors are, they are investment folks, especially if you look at some of the older ones and the more traditional channels where we do this work. But if they're just investment folks, if that's the only thing that they're willing to talk about, you should probably shop around and find something else. Maybe it's just because I come from outside of this business. I didn't go to business school. I was a math teacher, and then I quit my job on a whim and was like, where can I go work? And that's how I kind of fell into this industry. But I'm naturally skeptical of the way the business has been done historically. We're moving now towards a better way of starting with a plan, starting with the goals. So I think that's really where you want to look as if you're looking towards an advisor.
Yeah, I love what you said, EK. You threw around a lot of terms, right? Titles that these financial professionals have. And for the layman, all it really means is these titles represent how far they can go on your behalf, right? They only have licenses up to do a certain amount of things on your behalf. So like you said, conversation with a coach is always warranted, right? A financial coach, because they're kind of like your ground level mindset people, budgeting, credit, the basics of how money works. Your coaches are there for you in that aspect. Your consultants are more like you have something coming up, right? Something in your life, a life event. You want advice, but you might not need a long-term relationship with them. You don't want to mess up money or make a mistake or pay a lot of taxes on something, and you get that answer and that solves the issue, right? But then your financial planners and your investment advisors, sometimes they are the ones that go along with you on a longer journey, right? Because you have the finances, You understand the basics of money. You don't have any pressing needs, but you want to make sure that your lifestyle is the way you design it, and you want to be able to leave something for generations to come. And so those are longer relationships, because if you want to multiply the money, right, you're putting principal in, but you want interest, you want growth, you want all of these things. So now your planners and your investment advisors are the ones that will go with you that mile. They have the licenses to do certain things that maybe coaches don't have licenses to do. And it's no diss, it's just levels to this, right? It's levels to how you engage with your money. And so I always tell people, have the conversation, like EK said. It's nothing wrong. Even if the person you're talking to doesn't have the licenses to then do the things that you talked about, I'm sure they have within their arsenal other peers that can get that done or actualize that for you. So don't worry about which one has the certain credential. Just have the conversation and allow them to use their networks to get you the other things that you need.
Mm-hmm. So I want to be clear that I am not a financial advisor. I do not tell people what to do with their money. I am a money manifesting guide. And I help women over 40 to get clear on what living life on their terms looks like. I help them to manifest money with more ease. And that's just allowing more freedom more freedom, more peace of mind. Because when people think about money, what is it that they really want? Most times it is freedom, freedom of their time, freedom to do more of the things that they want to do. So what does that look like? And experience it, to start experiencing freedom now. People think I have to wait until I get money, then I'll have peace of mind, or then I'll have freedom. You can start doing right now, even if you have $0 in your bank account. I like to think of myself as the person that helps them to shift their mindset so they can be ready for a financial advisor, because most people are just so afraid of money. They think, no, I can't. I'm not ready for a financial advisor. So I was also a teacher. For those of you in the US, I was teaching kindergarten. So when they first come in, so I kind of see myself even on this side as I help you when you first are ready to shift and change your relationship with money so that it can continue to expand and grow as you expand and grow with it.
Mm-hmm. It's so helpful. That is such a helpful mindset shift, because I know people, speaking for a friend, who really feel like, well, if I only had this much money, then I would be able to whatever it is. Or, if I had money, then I could do this thing. But we're not walking the same path. We're saying if, but we're not getting the education to do. And we're also saying if, but we're not in the mindset of how. Like, we're not thinking about, like, well, what is the if? What is the why? What are the wants that I actually want to do with this play money that's out there for me to manifest? We are wrapping up, and I see Akrama has a couple of questions, so I'm going to ask these, and then we'll have a wrap-up question. If you are in the chat and you've been holding on to a question that you have, but maybe too embarrassed to ask it, now is the time. Now is the time. You've got some ears and some help. What Sister Akrama asks, what solutions do we have to address the poor? I know someone who went to an advisor who basically told them they didn't have enough money to be advised. What advice do you have for those people?
Oof, yeah, this is a real passion point for me, because if you look at how, particularly for financial advisors, investment advisors technically is the more correct title here. If you look at the way that their businesses have historically been structured, it only makes business sense. It's only really profitable for them to talk to people who have over a certain level of assets to be managed. Maybe that's 100,000, maybe that's 500,000, maybe that's $1 million. It really depends on their structure. But for somebody who is just getting started in those sort of traditional models, oftentimes it doesn't make strictly business sense for them to talk to them. Now that said, the industry is evolving past that, and there are established businesses that, maybe they are able to earn their profits from the big clients, the multi-million dollars, and then do pro bono work on the side. That's a lot of what I wind up doing. I'll have a conversation for an hour or two with basically anybody who walks in the door, regardless of whether they plan to or have any assets to be managed, just because there's a from the business side, there's a floor that is available, right? And so I think if you are approaching an advisor and they say, I'm not even going to talk to you just because you don't have money yet, that's a pretty big red flag to me. I'd be concerned about, is that advisor really looking after your best interests, or are they trying to line their pockets? Again, maybe that's just my natural skepticism. I'm not so sure.
No, that's great, EK. I'm a licensed investment advisor myself, and I call myself a unicorn because there are less than 3% of Black female licensed investment advisors in the world, less than 3% of me. And I did run across, when I was thinking of where I could put my license or who I could work with, what broker dealer, what custodian, where will I put my license so I could serve? I did come across big firms who said there are minimums in which we will take a client on. And we're talking about 6-figure minimums. So then that cuts out a lot of people who are just beginning to save, just beginning to invest, or maybe they only have an old 401k someplace and they want to be able to bring it back into their scope and start adding to it again. Well, some of these big custodians are not even going to take that account. And so I didn't want to be a part of that. I wanted to be able to help people who have starting from scratch, or they have a little something and they do feel like they have the need to have a higher level conversation with me. That's a real thing. In order to, let's say, deal with the poor, or let's say middle income families, right? There are nonprofit organizations that provide not just the financial literacy piece, but like workbooks and work seminars and things that you can ask direct questions of them. Like Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is one of them. They actually have a somewhat of a formula for how you should have your spending plan. So they go, 50, 30, 20, right? Your 50% of your net pay, they want you to take care of your needs. And then the 30%, take care of your desires or your wants. And then the 20% goes toward your debt and your savings. So even if we think about some of us who are working, and you might be contributing to your 401k plan, oftentimes there's a limit to what you can put in. Maybe it's 3%, maybe it's 6%, maybe it's 10% or whatever. So when you think about, only 20% towards my savings and towards my debt, I might have a lot of debt. So I might not be able to save right now. If that is the case, then we have to target the debt, right? Because it is in the way. Right. So that 20% of how you engage with your savings or long-term investing, how you engage with your debt, that's a basic model. And once you just focus on that, my needs, my wants, my saving, and my debt, that's basic. And once you get that down and you start freeing up money, then you can start saying, okay, EK, where can I put this? Like, what type of account can I put this extra $50 into, or $100 into? But you start with the basics of how you manage your everyday budget, whether you have an advisor or not. That is a basic formula that anybody can follow. And of course, the more income you make, maybe you put yourself in a different tax bracket, but that's a different conversation that you've got to have with your tax professional, right? So I always dream that you should have what we call a financial dream team, right? Your financial dream team are your people that help you to take care of the what ifs. So that could be your tax people, right? Making sure that you're giving Uncle Sam what he's due, but not too much, right? Not overdoing it, but give him what he's due. Your insurance agents, making sure that when something happens in your life, whether medically or to your assets, your car, your home, that it's not causing you to dip into your emergency savings because there's someone cutting a check for the circumstance that just happened. So that preserves your cash or your emergency money. So you've got to have some insurance agents on your team. Make sure you've got a banker on your team. So now you have your budgeting going, but you can go into that local branch and say, hey, I don't have a credit card yet. I want to have a discussion about what types of leverage could I have if I get a loan, or if I have a credit card, like what kind of interest rate, how can I build that relationship with you? So you should have a banker on your team, right? You should have someone like EK or me that does have a license in investments. It doesn't mean that you need six figures. You can start from scratch depending on the custodian that you're dealing with. But that's our job, to make sure that the custodian can accept what it is that you have already. So when I think about a dream team, I'm thinking about people that are helping us to save more money, make more money, and protect the money that we have. And you don't have to use all these people at the same time, but you just got to know that I'm building a lifestyle and this is a journey. And I might not need that investment advisor right now, but I know I definitely need a banker. I know I definitely need an insurance agent, right? Because I'm making money and my income earning is an asset. My ability to earn revenue is an asset that I need to protect. So these are the kind of things that we should at least be thinking about and having conversations in our homes about. Who can we put on our dream team so that when and if we need something, we can go there?
Mm-hmm. And from a mindset perspective, for someone who feels that they don't have any money, I would encourage them to make an identity shift. So start asking, what is it that I want more money for? What is it that I want more time for? And when you're thinking about the time, take the money out of it, because a lot of times we think, oh, I don't have the money to do that. So take that out and just allow yourself to dream big. And when you think about the things that you want, start asking yourself, that version of me, what are the thoughts that that version of me thinks? How does that version of me feel? And what are the actions that that version of me takes? That's going to shift your mind from, I don't have, I'm not sure, to, wait a minute, there is another version of me that exists. And in this moment, I get to be that version of me. And the more that you do it, you're going to just start seeing people actually doing the things that you are writing about. And it's just going to open some new doors of opportunity for you.
I want to, in this last question, I think this is great. Ikrama is asking, how do we use financial literacy to produce collective freedom? And so, Kima, when you were talking, you were really rounding out what this looks like, having a financial team, right? Going in and figuring out what type of financial planner is actually going to help you if you're starting from scratch or wherever you're starting from, just being aware of the flags, whether they be red or green, to make sure that your financial planner is a good fit on your team. And then Kima just talking about, okay, now that we have our team together, now that we have chosen a financial planner, what is our mindset like? And so all of these things are helpful to us as individuals. How do we shift that mindset, those thoughts, those financial thoughts, into community? And to bring back Ikrama's question, how do we use this mindset to produce collective freedom?
Yeah, I would say, people throw around this term, especially nowadays, access to capital, right? You see small business owners talking about it. You see people talking about it in education. We need money to be able to educate in a better form or fashion. But when we are personally developing ourselves and coming out of a dark space and into an elevated space, now we become the access to capital, right? We have the resources and leverage to be able to show up to a school and pay for the uniforms, right? Or show up to a church who wants to start a garden, and you can provide the means to be able to get those seeds. Like, your individual independence and liberation is what gives the access to capital for the goals, for the values that you have, for the initiatives in the community. Like, yes, we can use the bank's money, but we can also have our own resources. And the more comfortable we are with having money conversations and knowing where to go to get money, we can then bring that back into the community and pool it together for the things that we want to do. So it's not an either or, it's I have to get myself together, right? It's like when they say on the airplane, put the mask on yourself first. Like, I have to go and understand money, implement the things that I'm learning, share it with the people around me, my exuberance about now having savings, now having investments, now having 2-3 homes. Like, you share that experience, and then you model it before people so they can too join you in that liberation. Because again, when successful individuals come together, that is also community and access to capital.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also important to recognize that wealth takes many different forms, right? So obviously we talked a lot about specifically financial wealth, money and currency and all of these things. But if you are in a community where that is just maybe you're just getting started on your journey, maybe you've fallen on hard circumstances to where you just don't have that financial wealth, you still have value in all of these other ways. Your knowledge, your skills, your experiences, your relationships, all of these are powerful things that you can bring to your community in that kind of barter like exchange of value that Dr. Constance is talking about, right? So it doesn't have to be, I don't have money and so I can't be valuable. Recognizing those are two different ideas, they're not necessarily connected, is huge. And you can work together. Maybe you don't have the ability to personally fund the purchase of the school uniforms for the school. Maybe you can't do that. But maybe you can be there to hand them out once somebody else has gotten to buy them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's still building your community and still pushing you towards a better place from where you were before. And that's just as important.
Yeah, and part of it is recognizing that we get to shift and change how we make our money. Because, like, my parents worked really, really hard, and a lot of people are working really, really hard, but they're not experiencing that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
We just get so caught up in work that we're not spending time with our families. A lot of people are burnt out, stressed out, overwhelmed, overworked. They're getting sick. So part of it is maybe having the conversation around how can we make our money work for us so that we can experience more freedom. And the more we include money and freedom together, that's how we will produce that collective thinking of freedom, because a lot of times we don't even really think about what true freedom is. We think, okay, we're free, we're not slaves anymore, but now we've become slaves to work. We've become slaves to work. So it's giving ourselves permission to work less, really take our breaks, allow more ease in, and experience that true and authentic freedom.
That's good.
Yep. I can't do too much better than that. If you're wondering what I was going to say, just rewind and listen to the last part of what Dr. Constance says, what EK says, and what Kima has just said, so that we can really come together as a community. I love this idea of we have value. Financial value is not the only value that we have. Working just to work is not the dream, and taking care of ourselves first so that we can take care of our communities and have this collective freedom that we are talking about are amazing notes to end on. Thank you so very much. I know if there is something at this point that you haven't said that you would like to leave our audience with, now is the time.
I think for me, probably the last thing I just want to leave off on is, this is not an easy journey, but that doesn't mean it has to be a painful one, right? I said before, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, and I'm a licensed investment advisor. I'm a professional, right? I still make mistakes. I still get emotional. I still feel that same fear that a lot of my clients do. All of that stuff is normal, but you can't let it control you. You can't let it become the thing that defines your interaction with your wealth, because as soon as you get to that point, it's very, very difficult to dig yourself out of that hole.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's a quote that I often think about. P.T. Barnum says, "Money is a terrible master, but an excellent servant." Like Kima was saying, not working so hard, you get in this mode of work to make the money, to earn the money. But once you have done that, you've got to give that money a direction, give it a job, give it a purpose, right? And so there are things that we have to use money for our everyday sustainability. But then there are things that we get to experience in our own life and journey and model before our kids and grandkids and the little nieces and nephews that are looking at their aunties in Chicago and are like, listen, one day I'm gonna get me one of those condo things that they talk about. Actually, I got one right now, y'all, living in my
There you go.
But if I didn't see it, I wouldn't know it was possible, right? And she just thought, oh, I'm bringing my nieces on by. But the eye-opening experience that it was for us to be able to get out of our own intimate, space, do something that we were terrified to do, but we did it anyway and got on that plane and we went and had a great time. And now my sister and I both are entrepreneurs, but my aunt, she worked in corporate and retired, right? And had an awesome life working in a corporate space, but we ended up doing entrepreneurship. So we did it a different way, but the eye-opening experience with the basics and the fundamentals of working hard, putting the basic financial concepts into action, reaping the benefits of it and not being afraid to have these uncomfortable conversations as they happen, being able to be that person in the family that does things a little bit differently because, hey, I seen what the old way was, right? And now I get to choose to do a new thing. And if that works, then now I can share that with those generations that are coming. And they are doing things a lot faster than we are, right? They have
they are.
They have AI. They're a lot more vocal in a lot of different social justice areas. They are not standing for the nonsense. And so when you put money behind those voices and the technology and the exposure that they have, I mean, something can go viral in a minute, but what if we could put positive energy behind that vocal story or that viral story, sharing about what it is that we're doing in our communities and other communities latching on and saying, I can do that here. I can do that in my town. I can do that too. So it just starts with the one person who decides, I want to do things differently because here's my why. Someone else's why could be different. But if I do it for me and my family and my neighborhood, then it can catch on in other areas.
I'd like to leave with, you are the author of your money story. You get to write the next page. Most likely, most of the things that have been written so far are what other people have written for you. And you get to pick up that pen, you get to erase what you want to erase, you get to start a new page, you get to decide what happens with your money story. And just remember that you are a powerful creator. You have the power within to create the life that you deserve and desire to live.
I'm going to write that one down.
That's good. Kima always leaves us with something good. It just sits there so eloquently. Like didn't drop the mic on us.
Oh, friends and family, my goodness, you're here. You saw it. You came to a wisdom, wellness, and wealth event on a Wednesday. We talked about financial literacy, a foundation for conscious communities. I'd like to just take the time just a little bit to say thank you very, very much to each and every one of our panelists. Thank you, Dr. Constance. Thank you, Ike. Thank you, Kima, for being amazing and patient, vulnerable, and so helpful to our viewers. If you are watching this and just as blown away as I always am with our wonderful panelists, I just encourage you to come back, join us again next time for Black communities building partnerships and expanding networks. This event offers a unique opportunity to connect with professionals and entrepreneurs, and that will be on Wednesday, October 18th from 7 p.m. to 8:45. And then if you are thinking to myself, but I love these people, I need to see them in person, then you have a chance. Go to the Maple Lawn Farmers Market. That's on Saturdays, September 23rd and October 28th. And you can see Sister Ikrama and Karen, if Karen is back from Georgia, the Pieces Collective at Maple Lawn Farmers Market in Fulton, Maryland from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Again, I would love just to say thank you so much to our panelists for your inspiration. Thank you to Ikrama for gathering us together, and also Karen Freeman for gathering us together. And this again has been the Pieces Collective. We will see you next time. Good night.